I now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. McClintock, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's interesting. The Democrats began the session with the budget hearing on restoring Congress's power of the purse. Now we're hearing how Democrats want to relinquish Congress's constitutional power of the purse to the executive branch to establish debt levels. This is the topsy-turvy world we've come to expect from the majority. The debt limit is a speed bump that's designed to prompt the Congress to ask what it's doing wrong when we find ourselves spending more than we're taking in revenue. And it has worked repeatedly over the years. The Democrat witnesses who say it's had no effect on budget reforms are simply wrong. The Balanced Budget and Emergency Deficit Control Act of 1985 and its extension, and the PAYGO provisions of 1997, and the Pay-As-You-Go Act in 2010, and the Budget Control Act of 2011, they were all enacted as part of the debt ceiling negotiations. Now, it's true the debt limit is not a panacea, but it is a useful tool. And the crux of the problem is that in the last 10 years, while inflation and population have grown a combined 27%, revenues have grown 58%. That is with the Republican tax cuts. Revenues have grown twice as fast as inflation and population combined. The problem is the spending in the same period has grown 89%. And that spending would be even higher, and with it our debt, if it wasn't for the reforms over the years that were enacted because of the debt ceiling discussions. But the Democrats don't even want to have those discussions anymore. They're proceeding on the assumption that the federal government can spend unlimited amounts of money with no consequences. And the problem with that is there are consequences. It turns out all of that free money is very expensive. The fact is government can't put a dollar into the economy that it first hasn't taken out of the same economy. And there are only three ways to do that. Either current taxes, which rob you of your current purchasing power, borrowing, which robs you of your future purchasing power, or printing money, which robs you every time you go shopping by reducing the value of your earnings while it silently hollows out your savings and retirement funds. That's the 7.5% inflation rate that's being caused by these trillions of dollars of free government money. What that means is if you earn $50,000 a year, inflation just took $3,750 from your annual purchasing power. If you've managed to put aside $100,000 for retirement, the December inflation rate just took $7,500 of that. That's the consequence of excessive debt financed by monetary policy. And the crux of the Democrats' argument appears to be that an impasse on the debt limit risks a catastrophic default on our debt payments. You may remember that during the Obama administration, they argued the same thing. I introduced the Full Faith and Credit Act and then the Default Protection Act to make it crystal clear that the administration did have the full authority to prioritize payments to protect the nation's credit. They both passed the House without a single Democrat supporting them. Democrats in the Senate refused to take them up. But frankly, these measures were superfluous. The organic law that established the Treasury Department in 1789 specifically gives the Treasury Secretary the authority and responsibility to, quote, manage the revenue and support the public credit. And the GAO clearly spelled out what that means to the Senate Finance Committee way back in 1985. They said Treasury is free to liquidate obligations in any order it finds will best serve the interests of the United States. Meanwhile, the Constitution commands that the public debt is not to be questioned. Prioritization is the practical mechanism for doing that. Most state constitutions provide first call on any revenues is to maintain and protect their sovereign credit. This is simply a canard. We discovered that even while the Obama Treasury Department was denying that they had the ability to prioritize to protect debt payments, they were actually making preparations to do so. And we also discovered documents that revealed the Federal Reserve officers were appalled when the administration denied their intention to give priority to debt payments because such statements, they said, ran a severe risk of panicking credit markets. That's exactly what we're hearing from the Democrats and their witnesses on this committee and from this administration. And with that, Mick, do you have anything to add?
I was going to say, Tom, you're absolutely right. I mean, if the concern here is that we'll miss it by accident, then clarify prioritization. The Obama administration thought we could do it. I thought we could do it. We read OMB, but some folks say that we can't. So let's clarify and say, okay, so the sovereign debt gets paid first. as Hensling pointed out in his just exempt sovereign debt from the debt ceiling. So you focus on discretionary and mandatory spending. There's all sorts of ways to address these issues without getting rid of the debt ceiling. Now, one of the best 4-minute summaries I think I've heard of this topic in a long time. I do miss being there.
You're back.